I want to take you on a journey today. One that has been years in the making, a journey that finally reached its conclusion in 2026. It's the story of why I finally left Windows 11 behind and made the complete switch to Linux. I know that might sound extreme or even unnecessary to some people. After all, Windows 11 has been advertised as the most modern, polished, and feature-rich operating system Microsoft has ever released. Many users feel comfortable with it, and for casual computing, it works fine. But the longer I used Windows 11, the more I realized that it was not serving me in the way I needed, not anymore. The decision to leave Windows 11 was not made lightly. It came after years of frustration, observation, and comparison. It wasn't a single moment or a single problem. It was an accumulation of experiences, a series of small irritations that eventually became impossible to ignore. The first area where I noticed the limitations of Windows 11 was updates. Windows has always had a complicated relationship with updates, but Windows 11 made it worse. Updates became mandatory, invasive, and disruptive. I would be in the middle of working on a project, whether it was video editing, coding, or writing, and suddenly Windows would decide it needed to restart. Sometimes it was just a notification. Other times the system would schedule a restart automatically. I'd find myself losing unsaved work, troubleshooting broken drivers, or trying to recover from changes that were made without my consent. Updates weren't just inconvenient. They felt like a constant reminder that Windows controlled my computer more than I did. On Linux, updates are entirely under my control. I decide when to update, which packages to update, and nothing is forced upon me. I can schedule updates at a convenient time, test updates in a controlled environment, and even roll back changes if something goes wrong. That level of control, the ability to choose, felt like reclaiming my computer for myself. After years of being interrupted by forced updates, that freedom was revolutionary. Performance was another key reason I started reconsidering Windows 11. The operating system is marketed as fast and efficient, but the reality for me was quite different. Windows 11 comes with dozens of background processes running silently, telemetry services that track activity, and bloatware that quietly consumes resources. Even on high-end machines, the system would occasionally slow down for no apparent reason. Fans would spin up, the CPU would spike, and sometimes the system would feel sluggish even when doing simple tasks like browsing or watching videos. Switching to Linux completely changed that experience. I started with a lightweight distribution, something minimal, and added only the tools and applications I needed. Suddenly, my computer ran smoothly, efficiently, and reliably. Multitasking became effortless, and I no longer worried about background processes draining resources. The difference in responsiveness was noticeable from day one. Linux gave me the ability to optimize the system exactly the way I wanted, without any unnecessary overhead or hidden resource consumption. For someone who spends hours every day on a computer, this level of performance gain is life-changing. Privacy also became a growing concern over the years. Windows 11, like many modern operating systems, collects a massive amount of data by default. Telemetry, location tracking, Cortana activity, app usage, all of it flows back to Microsoft servers. For casual users, this might not seem like a big deal, but for someone who values their digital privacy, it felt invasive. I realized I was giving up control of my own data without even thinking about it. Linux, on the other hand, offered transparency and control. Most distributions do not collect data, and when they do, it is entirely optional and clearly explained. I could see exactly what information was being collected and control it completely. I could run my system knowing that my data belonged to me, not a corporation. That sense of privacy, that peace of mind, was invaluable and something I could never get back once I experienced it. Another significant factor was customization. Windows 11 allows some personalization, like changing themes, wallpapers, or taskbar positions. But deep customization is limited. You often need third-party tools, registry hacks, or workarounds to get even basic modifications. Linux, however, is a completely open platform. I could configure the desktop environment exactly how I wanted, adjust window behavior, customize menus, create multiple workspaces, and even design the workflow of notifications, shortcuts, and system behavior. I experimented with tiling window managers, multiple desktop environments, and minimal setups that maximized efficiency and minimized distractions. The system adapted to me rather than me adapting to the system. Every tweak, every adjustment, directly improved my workflow and productivity. The ability to craft an environment that works exactly for me is something Windows can't replicate. It's not just aesthetic, it's functional, practical, and transformational in daily usage. Software freedom was another compelling reason. Windows 11 keeps you tied to its ecosystem. Many applications are exclusive, licensing restrictions limit usage, and proprietary software often dictates how you can work. Linux opens up an entire world of open-source software. Every tool I needed had an alternative, often free, often more flexible than the Windows equivalent. Installation and updates were handled through package managers, and I could automate processes that were previously manual or convoluted. I could script repetitive tasks, manage dependencies efficiently, and experiment with new tools without worrying about breaking licenses or paying for unnecessary features. That freedom to choose and adapt software to my needs was liberating and empowering. It made me realize how much I had been constrained by Windows all along, and how much better computing could be when the user is in control. Gaming was initially a concern. Windows has always been considered the platform for gamers, and the thought of leaving it behind felt risky. But by 2026, gaming on Linux is more viable than ever. With Proton, Steam Play, and native Linux titles, I could play almost every game I enjoyed without compromise. Native games on Linux have improved dramatically, and compatibility layers allow Windows-only games to run smoothly. Surprisingly, Linux even gave me more control over performance. Without unnecessary background services, bloatware, or hidden processes, my games ran more efficiently than they did on Windows 11. For my personal gaming needs, Linux not only matched but often surpassed Windows in stability, control, and performance. It was a revelation that dispelled one of the biggest myths holding me back from switching. Security was another factor that became increasingly important. Windows 11 has improved security features such as TPM 2.0, secure boot, and sandboxed applications, but it is still a primary target for malware due to its popularity and legacy support. Linux operates differently. The user permission model, package signing, and open-source transparency make vulnerabilities easier to identify and patch quickly. By default, Linux restricts unauthorized access and allows me to control exactly what software interacts with my files, network, and hardware. That level of security is reassuring. I no longer worry about viruses, ransomware, or background processes accessing sensitive data without my consent. I felt like my system was truly under my control, and that allowed me to focus on productivity, creativity, and enjoying my computing experience. The transition itself wasn't instantaneous. Moving from Windows 11 to Linux required learning, experimentation, and patience. I spent weeks testing different distributions, configuring drivers, and finding software alternatives that fit my workflow. There were moments of frustration, such as configuring Wi-Fi drivers, adjusting settings for graphics, or finding equivalents for proprietary applications. But each challenge was a learning opportunity. I gained a deep understanding of how computers work, how processes interact, and how software dependencies operate. By the time I fully switched, I felt empowered, knowledgeable, and in control. I wasn't just using a system, I was mastering it. Every tweak I made improved my workflow, efficiency, and overall experience. The Linux community played a critical role in my transition. Windows support is often impersonal, consisting of facts or canned troubleshooting advice. Linux users, on the other hand, are passionate, helpful, and genuinely interested in sharing knowledge. Forums, chat groups, and wikis provided guidance far beyond what corporate support could offer. I found myself part of a global network of people who were curious, collaborative, and willing to solve problems together. That sense of community made the learning curve enjoyable rather than intimidating. It made me feel part of something bigger than just using a computer. It made me part of a movement that values transparency, freedom, and collaboration. Philosophically, Linux aligns with values I have grown to appreciate over the years. It embodies freedom, transparency, and user empowerment. Every component of the system is visible, understandable, and modifiable. Nothing is locked behind opaque processes or corporate control. Windows 11, in contrast, increasingly felt like a walled garden where decisions about how I could use my computer were dictated externally. Using Linux was a reclamation of digital autonomy. It represented a commitment to understanding and controlling my technology rather than being dictated by it. The decision to switch wasn't just practical, it was philosophical. It was about aligning my tools with my values. Looking back, leaving Windows 11 feels inevitable. The system was adequate for years, but adequacy isn't enough when a superior alternative exists. Linux provides speed, efficiency, security, privacy, and freedom in ways Windows cannot. It also offers ongoing opportunities to learn and grow. Every day I discover new ways to optimize, automate, and enhance my workflow. The freedom to choose, to configure, and to understand every aspect of my system is exhilarating. I feel more productive, empowered, and secure than ever before. The experience is not just about functionality, it is about control, mastery, and satisfaction. Computing no longer feels like a chore or constraint. It feels like an extension of my own abilities and creativity. For anyone hesitant about switching, I understand the fear. Linux has a learning curve, and some software ecosystems remain Windows-dominated, but the payoff is enormous. The autonomy, privacy, performance gains, and security benefits make the journey worthwhile. Experimenting with live distributions, testing desktop environments, and exploring open-source alternatives can ease the transition. It's a process of discovery, growth, and empowerment. You learn not just how to use a computer, but how computers actually work. You gain control, efficiency, and confidence in ways Windows cannot provide. Leaving Windows 11 for Linux was transformative. It was about reclaiming control over my computing environment, optimizing performance, protecting privacy, and engaging with a community that shares a vision of freedom and transparency. It was about moving from being a passive user to an empowered participant in my digital world. Every day on Linux reinforces that this was the right decision. The system grows with me, adapts to my workflow, and enables creativity, productivity, and learning. It's a platform that respects the user, values autonomy, and rewards curiosity. Making the switch is not just technical, it's a statement about valuing your time, your data, and your independence. Linux allows me to interact with technology on my terms, without unnecessary interference, surveillance, or restrictions. It is a system that serves me rather than controls me. The journey is ongoing. Even years after switching, I continue to explore new distributions, experiment with different environments, and refine my setup. I continue to learn, adapt, and grow alongside my system. Every tweak, every adjustment, every new discovery reminds me why leaving Windows 11 was the right choice. It was about freedom, control, security, privacy, performance, and community. It was about reclaiming computing for myself. Linux has given me an experience that Windows 11 cannot replicate. It has given me autonomy, empowerment, and satisfaction. Every day, I am reminded that computing should serve the user, not the other way around. For anyone frustrated with forced updates, telemetry, system bloat, or limitations, Linux offers a viable, rewarding alternative. The transition requires effort, but the reward is a system that works with you, for you, and around you. Leaving Windows 11 in 2026 was more than a switch of operating systems. It was a step toward mastery, independence, and empowerment. Every moment I spend on Linux reaffirms that choice, and I know I will never go back. It is the platform where freedom, performance, privacy, and productivity converge, and it has transformed my computing experience in ways Windows could never achieve. The decision was challenging, but the benefits have been profound, and for anyone seeking autonomy and control over their digital life, Linux is the path forward. The journey of leaving Windows 11 is not just about changing software, it's about reclaiming your time, your control, your data, and your freedom in a digital world increasingly dominated by closed ecosystems and corporate interests. Linux empowers users to define their environment, take control, and thrive. I finally left Windows 11 because I realized that computing should serve me, not the other way around. Linux gives me that control, and it has changed the way I work, play, create, and think about technology. It is a system designed with the user in mind, and for me, it is the only way forward. Every day I use Linux reinforces that this was not just a switch. It was the right choice, the only choice that aligns with my values, my workflow, and my vision of what computing should be. I am empowered, productive, secure, and free. And leaving Windows 11 was the first step toward experiencing all of that fully. For anyone considering a similar path, the message is simple. Take the leap, explore Linux, and discover the freedom that comes from truly owning your computing experience. The journey is challenging, but the reward is a system that works with you, grows with you, and respects you as a user. Linux is more than software, it is autonomy, it is mastery, it is freedom. Leaving Windows 11 was the choice that changed everything, and it is a choice I have never regretted.